Kalispera from Athens, Kalimera in the United States. Welcome to another exciting episode in our CYA virtual lecture series. It is always a joy, to see familiar faces as they come on the screen, one after the other, and both in Greece and all over the world. These gatherings have become a highlight for many of us, all from the comfort of our homes, and for me, from the comfort of my desk, I guess. Dr. Natalia Vogeikoff-Brogan is our guest speaker today, and Professor Jack Davis, our discussant. They have both been associated for a long time with CYA. Dr. Vogeikoff-Brogan enlightened our students briefly as a teacher at CYA in 1994 with a course on ancient Greek art and archaeology. And Professor Davis has provided invaluable guidance to us as a member of CYA's Board of Advisors. I'm privileged to introduce tonight's lecture, American Humanitarianism Abroad, the Greek Commission of the American Red Cross and the American Friends of Greece between the wars. This lecture will explore the significant impact of American relief efforts in Greece during the interwar period, drawing upon the collaborative research of Dr. Vogeikoff and Professor Davis. Their work was recently featured in the Name of Humanity exhibition at the Makrigiannis wing of the American School of Classical Studies, illuminating a pivotal chapter of humanitarian aid. And I had the privilege to see this exhibition. I also had the privilege to be guided by Dr. Vogeikoff, and I must say it was an incredible experience. This, by the way, is the very, very impressive catalog of the exhibition. Natalia Vogeikoff-Brogan boasts a distinguished career that bridges the worlds of archaeology and historical scholarship. After completing her PhD at Bryn Mawr, she joined the American School of Classical Studies at Athens, serving as the director of its archives. Dr. Vogeikoff is not only a seasoned archaeologist with extensive fieldwork in Crete, but also a writer and a curator of exhibitions that delve into the history of American archaeology in Greece. She has made a significant contribution to understanding the intersections of archaeology, history, and humanity. Joining Natalia is Professor Jack Davis, the Carl Blagin Professor of Greek Archaeology at the University of Cincinnati and former director of the American School of Classical Studies. Jack has extensive archaeological work across Greece and Albania. He has directed or co-directed regional archaeological projects in several areas of Greece, particularly in Nemea, in Kea, in Messenia, near the Palace of Nestor. That's the Pylos Regional Archaeological Project. His scholarly contributions to understanding Aegean prehistory and the history of archaeology in the region have earned him numerous accolades and positions of esteem within the global academic community. His contributions to archaeology have been honored far and wide, from the Society of Antiquaries of London to the University of California at Berkeley, where in 2019 he delivered the prestigious Sather Lectures while holding the Sather Professorship. Jack's dedication to unraveling the past has earned him the Archaeological Institute of America's Gold Medal Award for Distinguished Archaeological Achievement, a testament to his profound impact on the field. And in 2021, the President of Greece made Jack a Commander of the Order of the Phoenix. It is truly a treat to have both Natalia and Jack with us today. As I mentioned, as we embark on this fascinating exploration of efforts of American humanitarianism in Greece between the two wars, I need to give you a reminder, as always, this session is being recorded. For those who do not wish to be recorded, please turn off your video cameras. Again, thank you for joining us today. And without further ado, I invite Professor Jack Davis to take the floor and lead us into tonight's discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alexei. It's a real privilege to be here. As you said, my association with college here in Athens has been over several decades now, and it's one in which I'm quite proud, as I'm also quite proud about my association over more decades than either of us would like to remember. My association and friendship with Natalia Vogeikoff, who is our speaker this evening. I met Natalia before she came to the United States to study at Bryn Mawr. When she came, had just finished her studies at the University of Thessaloniki and came to Nemea, where we were working some years ago, without without being explicit about how long ago. And I don't think either of us understood at the time the directions that our careers would go. Our careers have increasingly led us into explorations in archives, not just at the American School of Classical Studies, but elsewhere around the world. And what has developed as a continuing quest to understand, in particular, the roles that the foreign archaeological schools in Athens have played in the politics and the community and the national affairs of Greece and surrounding countries. This is something that when I first came to the American school in the early 1970s, still just at the very end of the Junta, I was told that the American school was entirely apolitical. I've subsequently learned that isn't quite the truth. It wasn't quite the case. And the politics of the American school is an issue that that led me deeper and deeper into the American school's archives and intensified my friendship with Natalia over the years, to the extent that we've now been involved in co-authoring 2 books, and I've been able to take great pride that I've been able to help with a couple exhibits, recent exhibits, including the one that is just closed at the Makrianis wing of the American School, sponsored by the Archives of the American School and the Gennadius Library. So I'm very pleased to be here this evening to introduce Natalia. You've already presented the critical information about her. Before I turn the floor over to her, though, I want to review some administrative information. Throughout the presentation and the discussion this evening, please feel free to submit any questions that you'd like to submit using the chat function at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And as soon as Natalia concludes her presentation, I will get to as many of those questions as I can and serve as an intermediary in presenting those questions, transmitting those questions to her. At this point, then, I'd like to pass the microphone to Natalia for her presentation, as we said, titled this evening, American Humanitarianism Abroad, the Greek Commission of the American Red Cross and American Friends of Greece Between the Wars. Natalia, the floor is yours.
Jack, thank you for this nice introduction. And I have to say that I started working in the school's archives in 1994, and it was in 2007 when you became director of the American School. Until then, I was managing the archives, and it was in 2000 when you became director that you initiated me in the study of archives to do history through the archives, and that's where we started doing these collaborations. So let me share my screen. I would like to thank CYA and especially Alexis Philaktopoulos for inviting me to speak in the CYA webinar series. The invitation followed a tour that I gave to a group of alums of Athens College. Alexis was part of that group, who were visiting the In the Name of Humanity exhibition that the American School of Classical Studies staged in the fall of 2023 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the signing of the Lausanne Convention. Based on primary research, the exhibition highlighted the efforts of American humanitarian agencies acting in Greece from 1918 until 1929, including the American Red Cross, the Near East Relief, the American Women's Hospitals, and also those of many individuals, some closely associated with the American School. Edward Capps, professor of classics at Princeton University and chair of the school's managing committee for 20 years, Bert Hodge-Hill and Carl Blegen, director and secretary of the school respectively, were key figures associated with the American School, and each played a crucial role in the U.S. relief aid to Greece. Today, I focus on the work of two of the humanitarian agencies. The first part of my presentation examines the work of the American Red Cross in Greece at the end of the Great War and immediately after the Asia Minor catastrophe of 1922. And the second showcases the activities of another humanitarian agency, largely forgotten today, the American Friends of Greece. I put a slide here showing the primary and secondary sources I consulted during my research on those two subjects. And the Hesperia volume is the one co-edited with Jack Davis. And there is a very useful article by him titled The American School of Classical Studies and the Politics of Volunteerism. Very useful is the book by Julia Irwin, although there is very little about Greece in it. From the time that America entered the war in 1917, the American Red Cross, with the endorsement of President Wilson, had sent several commissions to Europe to provide military and civilian relief. The Greek Commission was organized in June and July 1918 in response to an appeal from the Greek Red Cross and was headed by Edward Capps. There came from America to do the work 103 persons, and several others were recruited in Europe. They enlisted in the service of the American Red Cross from all parts of the United States and represented all manners of occupations and professions. They were businessmen, lawyers, bankers, physicians, preachers, teachers, farmers, and mechanics, and among the women, trained nurses, stenographers, and social workers. The authority of the commission was vested in the commissioner, who held the rank of lieutenant colonel, and seven deputy commissioners with the rank of major. Thus wrote Capps in his published report of the accomplishments of the American Red Cross in 1919. It is not clear when and how it was decided that Capps would lead the American Red Cross Commission. The fact that he had been a colleague of Woodrow Wilson at Princeton must have played a role, some role, but it was not the only reason. The American Red Cross had created a separate department, the Insular and Foreign Division, to reach out to the thousands of Americans who resided abroad, either as employees of the State Department or working for various American corporations, institutions, and organizations. One of these institutions was the American School of Classical Studies at Athens. That Capps had access to an operating base in Greece, in Athens, not only it must have given him a leg up in the selection process. In addition, the staff of the school in Athens not only shared a deep knowledge of Greece, but they were also well connected with the local community. The problem of communication is not mentioned in the official reports, but appears in private correspondence. Outside Athens, the members of the commission could hardly find any Greek who could speak more than a few words of French. The Greek Commission, in addition to CAPS, included 7 deputy commissioners, that the majority of them had some connection with the state of Illinois, CAPS's home state, makes me suspect that he was involved in the selection process of the deputy commissioners and probably already knew some of them personally. You can see the people: Clifford Barnes, a Protestant minister from Chicago; Carl Black, a surgeon from Jacksonville, Illinois; Horace Oakley, a lawyer from Chicago. He's not in the photo here. Samuel Walker, a physician from Chicago; Cyril Hopkins, a professor of agronomy from Urbana, Illinois; businessman Alfred James from Milwaukee, Wisconsin; and Winsor Weld, a businessman from Boston. Henry Dewing, assistant professor of classics at Princeton, was the secretary of the commission. A little parenthesis: Dewing would become later the first director of Athens College in Greece in 1925. Most were mature men in their early 50s with families and established careers, while for younger people, personal development and career opportunities might have been a motivation for joining the various missions of the American Red Cross in Europe. It is not entirely clear why older and established people would leave their homes to subject themselves to hardships and suffering. There are several reasons to consider. A strong sense of patriotic duty must have influenced their decisions. Although service in the American Red Cross was not a substitute for combat, the militarization of the American Red Cross after 1917, you see they're all wearing military uniforms, was viewed by many men who were beyond draft age as an alternative form of governmental service. But most of all, by being part of the American Red Cross in the first decades of the 20th century, one was joining a new professional elite drawn from the ranks of the US government and corporate America. This new elite, the new elite, proud to manage philanthropic foundations and organizations such as the American Red Cross, shared President Wilson's larger vision for global peace and international order. In addition to substituting dollars for bullets, America had found another way to reach out to the world by offering a new type of civilian aid: non-sectarian, preventive, and constructive. By trusting its humanitarian mission to an army of professionals, the American Red Cross conferred a greater sense of cultural prestige in the international work of the organization, according to Julia Irwin, the author of Making the World Safe. With the preceding information as a background, I now come to the first part of my paper, that is the work of the American Red Cross in Greece immediately after World War I. So the members of the Greek Commission arrived in Greece on October 23rd, 1918. Upon their arrival in Athens, Commissioner Capps and his deputies were taken to the school, which had been rented by the American Red Cross to be used as sleeping quarters. The rest of the commission boarded in Athenian hotels. For its headquarters, the commission rented a large private mansion at 19 Kifisia Street, which is Vasilis Sofias today, and it's that little street that you see next to the headquarters. It's the Benaki Museum would develop later there. By December, the Greek Commission had already dispatched a mission to Eastern Macedonia to facilitate the repatriation of more than 100,000 Greeks who had been taken hostage to Bulgaria during World War I, and another to Lesbos and the adjacent islands to offer relief to Greek refugees from Asia Minor following the Turkish expulsions of 1913 to 1914. The American Red Cross also cared for distressed Jews in Thessaloniki and Pontic refugees encamped in Thessaloniki and Piraeus. The American Red Cross organized its civilian relief along 3 lines. It distributed food and clothes, it opened workshops for making clothes, and it provided medical care. For the first mission to Eastern Macedonia, there are published reports which described its accomplishments from an official perspective. However, in the archives of the American School, the diaries of Karl Blegen offer more personal and engaged views. The main goal of the Greek Commission was to provide food and shelter to the hostages returning on foot from Bulgaria. Blegen was instrumental in establishing a network of relief stations in the areas of Kavala, Ceres, Drama, Xanthi, and Alexandroupoli. You can see them here. Providing relief aid to 57 villages. Together with other members of the Commission and the Greek Red Cross, he investigated firsthand the needs of each village, recording their population and animal censuses before and after the Bulgarian invasion, as well as the numbers of people who had returned from Bulgaria. Once food supplies arrived, Blegen and his team organized flour distribution and the issue of bread line tickets to the neediest families. On November 19th of 1918, he wrote from the village of Angista near Drama, quote, "All are poor, but for the present, with our limited supply of food, we must try to get only the worthiest cases. We began with 1.5 oka of flour per person, but we soon had to reduce to 1 oka per person," end of quote. They were able to distribute flour to 2,066 individuals. Some had come 6 hours, had walked for 6 hours to get it. On January 14th, Blegen, it was Greek New Year's Day, Blegen was distributing bread in Kavala. About 4,000 people got double ration of bread, wrote in his diary. That same day, he received instructions to proceed to Western Macedonia to investigate conditions in the larger towns and report on hospital conditions and orphan asylums. On its way to Ioannina, his group made a brief stop at Ceres, and he wrote in his notebook, "In the afternoon, I went to the mosque and saw the soup kitchen in operation. Everything is running smoothly here." And here is Dewing, who would become later the first director or president of Athens College. You can see the American flag that always was present in all of these American Red Cross, Syssitia, food, soup kitchens. And every time that they offer aid, they had to fly the American flag. What is fascinating about Blegen's entries in his diary is that we can match them in many cases with photos that other members of the Greek Commission took, and which I have located in the papers of Horace Oakley in the Newberry Library in Chicago, and of Carl Black at Illinois College in Jacksonville. In addition, Horace Oakley composed and shared with the other members of the Greek Commission a commemorative scrapbook of their joint adventure in Macedonia. It is a rare item today, and we are lucky that there is a copy at the Gennadius Library. On November 6, 1918, the American Red Cross dispatched its mission to Lesbos and the adjacent islands to offer civilian relief to Greek refugees from Asia Minor. Windsor Wells, the investment broker from Boston, and Henry Dewing, the secretary of the commission, headed the Northern Aegean mission. Using Lesbos as a base, relief was distributed to the islands of Tenedos, Imbros, and Samothrace, as well to the city of Aivali in Asia Minor. 2 more stations were established on Chios and Samos. The commission found the refugees underfed and clad in rags. Very few children have shoes and stockings, well described in his report. In addition, a large epidemic of influenza had stripped the hospitals of medicines. Typhus and tuberculosis were endemic. How wretched the situation was, it is best described by Weld. While attending a funeral, he was shocked to see that, quote, the beautiful burying clothes and everything is taken off before the body is covered, clothing too valuable to lose, end of quote. Aiming at a better nourishment for the starving refugees, the Commission added rations of beans twice a week. As a complement to the rice that the Greek government had sent, the American Red Cross added milk and sugar to transform it into a nutritious risogalo. Opening workshops to make clothes was an intelligent way to occupy women refugees and teach them a skill. By earning some income to support their families, these women often avoided needing to prostitute themselves. On the island of Samos, the workshop occupied 65 women who worked from 8:30 to 5:30 and produced daily from 200 to 300 garments. Paid work was part of the American Red Cross's overall philosophy, which did not focus only on temporary relief, but strongly emphasized creating foundations for orderly, industrious post-war societies where people would remain productive and self-supporting and children would be well-fed and educated. Specialists offered courses in child welfare, hygiene, and sanitation. Infant mortality in Greece was reported to be as high as 25% among children under the age of 2. By establishing several infant welfare stations and by training Greek nurses, the American Red Cross ensured the longevity of the program after its departure from Greece. In the papers of Deputy Commissioner Horace Oakley, I found a snapshot taken at the American Red Cross dispensary on the island of Chios. The head nurse is demonstrating to expectant mothers how to bathe and clothe babies properly. At the end of each of these demonstrations, the future mothers would receive a parcel containing a blanket, soap, and clothes for the infant. I mentioned earlier that the Greek Commission included 2 experienced doctors from Chicago. As part of the American Red Cross's long-term care program, Carl Black reviewed 47 military and 49 civilian hospitals and published a report as a survey of the hospitals of Greece in 1919. He was aghast at the sight of the military hospital in Kavala in November 1918, quote, a tobacco warehouse where tobacco crates he described it as a tobacco warehouse where tobacco crates took the place of beds and the place offered few, if any, comforts than the poorest field hospital. It is worth mentioning another of Black's observations. I found it very interesting, quote, in visiting the hospitals of Greece, one is struck by the absence of active participation of the Greek Orthodox Church in their organization. There seems to be no order of monks or sisters wholly devoted to the care of sick, end of quote. The American Red Cross had a tradition of distributing farm equipment and seeds to encourage agricultural work. It is no surprise, therefore, that one of the 7 deputy commissioners, Cyril Hopkins, was a professor of agronomy who came to Greece to study the soil and to suggest ways of improving its efficiency. His report was the only one of the Greek Commission's reports that was published in Greek, obviously to be useful to the Greeks. With the repatriation of the Greeks from Bulgaria and the return of refugees to Asia Minor, the Greek Commission concluded its relief work in June 1919. Before that, many of its members, including Kaps, Hill, and Blegen, were decorated by King Alexander in recognition of their services. Before returning to the States, Kaps described the work of the Greek Commission in a series of published booklets. In addition to describing past activities, CAPS also pursued appropriations from the American Red Cross to support a training school for nurses, civilian welfare stations, child welfare stations, and orphanages for a period of 5 years. Financial reversals, however, forced the American Red Cross to suspend most of its European long-term programs in 1920. The Wilsonian internationalism embodied in the work of the American Red Cross waned after Wilson lost the elections in November of 1920. From now on, the American Red Cross would only respond to emergency calls, as it does today. America, after abandoning programs of international humanitarianism, returned to dollar diplomacy. It is no surprise that commercial relations between Greece and the United States increased after 1920. An important outcome of the school's involvement with the American Red Cross was that its members, especially CAPS, built strong ties with Anastasios Adosidis, the Governor General of Macedonia and a close friend of Eleftherios Venizelos. In 1929, Adosidis accepted CAPS's offer to become the business manager for the Athenian Agora excavations, which would officially start in 1931. Sylvie Dimond has recently written, "It is undeniable that from the moment the school secured the services of Anastasios Adosidis in 1928, the expropriation process accelerated. The completion of negotiations can be distributed in large part to his relationship to Eleftherios Venizelos." Following the Smyrna disaster in September 1922, the American community in Athens, represented by institutions such as the American School and the YMCA, and corporations such as Standard Oil, sought the support of the American Red Cross and the Near East Relief for the hundreds of thousands of refugees who were pouring into Greece. The American Red Cross mission arrived in Greece in late October 1922 and stayed for 9 months until June 1923. This time, however, it did not recruit members of the American community in Athens, although CAPS and Hill continued to contribute to Greek affairs. On November 12, 1922, in a long article in the New York Times, CAPS criticized America for withholding her share of the tripartite loan of 1918 from Greece. Venizelos would thank CAPS for this and other actions on behalf of Greece, adding that, quote, "We are indeed fortunate in having in you so true and able a friend across the ocean in this tragic crisis," end of quote. During the 9-month period that the American Red Cross stayed in Greece, it fed more than 500,000 people daily, distributed 24,000 tons of food, clothing, and medical supplies worth roughly $3 million. In June 1923, King George II of Greece decorated the personnel of the American Red Cross, acknowledging their pivotal contribution to the refugee crisis. As an emergency organization, the American Red Cross's leadership believed that it had fulfilled its mission in Greece and that the Greek state should move to the next step, namely the rehabilitation of the refugees. To prove its point, the American Red Cross ran press releases with success stories such as Smyrna refugee situation solved by assimilation. There were many, however, who thought that the American Red Cross had been in too much of a hurry to leave Greece. Following the departure of the American Red Cross from Greece in June 1923, CAPS traveled to Washington to lobby on behalf of the refugees. In vain, however, because the general attitude in the State Department was, quote, "Greece did it, let her stew in her own juice," end of quote. Initiated and headed by CAPS, the American Friends of Greece was incorporated on October 16, 1923. Non-sectarian and non-political, the organization aimed at acquainting the American people with the real facts in Greece, at cooperating with existing charitable organizations willing to undertake relief work in Greece, and at launching new appeals for funds. The organization's membership included many important American philhellenes associated with academia, the press, the business community, and philanthropic organizations. In a series of press releases in late 1923 and the early months of 1924, the American Friends of Greece appealed to the American public for several times for donations, either toward an immediate relief fund estimated at $3 million or a workshop fund estimated at $100,000 for women and girls unable to earn a living otherwise. A follow-up release informed the public that several thousand dollars had already been raised and transmitted to Greece, that hundreds of refugee women were already at work, shipments of their products were sold in the United States, with the proceeds of the sale being returned to Greece as a revolving fund. Under pressure from the American Friends of Greece and other U.S. relief organizations, the American Red Cross finally agreed to ship 5 tons of quinine to Greece without, however, resuming a new program of relief aid. Disappointed with the results of their efforts to raise awareness about the refugees in Greece, the American Friends dropped their general appeal for relief, concentrating solely on the development of embroidery workshops. Their next pamphlet, American Workshops in Greece, a 1924 experiment becomes a 1925 fact, promoted the success of their embroidery workshops. Mrs. W. Stuart Thompson had written its introductory text that presented the work of refugee women in the organization's 2 workshops, one in the Kounduriotis camp, τα Koundouriotika στη Λεωφόρο Αλεξάνδρειας, the other in Pankrati. W. Stuart Thompson, the architect of the Gennadios Library, and his wife, Gladys Slade Thompson, were the first representatives of the American Friends of Greece embroidery workshops before Priscilla Capps, daughter of Edward, took over the management in 1926. Priscilla, a graduate of Smith College, had assisted her father in Athens during his service as U.S. Minister to Greece in 1920, while she was a student at the American School. By 1928, the American Friends of Greece workshops were consolidated with the Near East Relief, rebranding themselves as Near East Industries. In Athens, the Near East industry products were offered to tourists from Priscilla's shop at number 48 Amalia Street, across from the Arch of Hadrian, and after 1931 at number 2 Amalia Street at Syntagma Square. They were also available for sale on cruise ships. At first, the production was limited to embroidered bags, purses, luncheon sets, suits, and dresses. The production of small dolls clad in traditional garments did not start until 1932. In America, the Near East industry products were sold from the organization's flagship store in Manhattan. They were also sold through bazaars in private houses, clubs, and schools. Priscilla Capps traveled once a year to America to organize displays in various cities. Society women in New York, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and other cities would open their houses to display the Near East industry's handicrafts. Louise Taft Semple in 1930s hosted at least 3 such events in her mansion in Cincinnati. After 1935, they were also sold through Kimport dolls. Kimport was founded in Independence, Missouri, and sold imported dolls from around the world. Long promotional press releases published in US newspapers presented the products of the Near East industries, educated the public about the value of preserving the folk art of Greece, and underscored the fact that this type of work gave employment to refugee women with dependent families. With Greece's entry into World War II in 1940, Priscilla Capps shifted the women in her workshops to the fabrication of supplies for the Greek army. In a period of 7 weeks, her workshops had produced over 125,000 garments. On April 18, 1941, however, when the Germans entered Athens, Priscilla, with her English husband Harry Hill and their little son, boarded with 3 suitcases a crowded ship for Alexandria. 2 months later, they would seek refuge in Bombay, India. In a letter to a friend, she wrote, quote, "So, after 15 years of working for refugees, perhaps with a bit of a feeling of superiority and patronage, I have now become one myself with my family and all my friends. It is a strange feeling," end of quote. In 1944, Priscilla was back in America, this time heading a nationwide clothing campaign on behalf of the Greek War Relief Association, and that's what the newspaper clipping is announcing. But this work of Priscilla with the Greek War Relief Association is a story, it's another story, and it's a story to be told on another occasion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Natalia. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
I'm back in. Thank you very much. I meant to summarize your talk a little bit, but I won't, but to any great extent. But I just want to say that thank you for the exhibit that you and Maria and Eleftheria organized in the Makrianis wing. I've seen what not only what interest this has brought to the community of Greeks and Americans in Greece itself, but that it has the potential to bring to Greek Americans here in the United States. Last Sunday, we had a very miniature version of this and attracted about 100 people from our local church in Cincinnati who were just intensely interested in the content and the nature of the exhibit in Athens. Your presentation once again reminded me of the incredible importance that Edward Capps had and played, and reminded me that when he died in 1949, that he was described in Greek newspapers as the best known American in all of Greece. And he deserves the attention, I think, that he is now receiving in the kind of research that you're carrying out. And I particularly appreciate the extent to which you have focused our attention on a couple issues. That is the role of the amateurs, the intellectual elite, and how they interacted and reflected the international policy of the Wilson administration, and also then the contrast that you've drawn between the long-term policies of the American Red Cross and those of the American the American Friends of Greece, in particular to these issues of sustainability and which American institutions were concerned to establish institutions that would outlive their immediate presence in Greece, and obviously, for that matter, in other countries too, as clearly an issue that was of great interest to those members of the American School who participated both in the American Red Cross mission that you described in Macedonia and in the Aegean, but those who continued to work on behalf of Greece in organizing the American Friends of Greece afterwards. We have some time for questions, and as I mentioned before, I am I'm looking at the chat room right now to see if there in fact are any questions for you. And I encourage you out there in the audience, of which I think we have quite a few people participating in this call, to send us, and I will relay those questions to Natalia. So Natalia, our first question comes from Susan Allen, who wonders if you could speak of Jackwith's work with the American Red Cross a bit.
It is, I won't speak about it a lot. I mean, I don't know much about Jackwith's work with the Red Cross, because Jackwith worked mostly with the Near East Relief. So it's another organization. And if my, I don't know if my colleague Eleftheria Valesiou is in this gathering, but she is the one who has worked extensively with the Near East Relief, and she curated that section in the exhibition.
Okay, we have another question. Does the American Friends of Greece still exist?
I don't think so. It looked like they were not they were active until 1940, and after in the 1940s they go ahead and they publish. We have like several new issues, not just pamphlets and leaflets that CAPS was publishing before, but they issue now a bulletin. And for several years, they were issuing a bulletin, the American Friends of Greece. It was titled the Philhellene in the 1940s. And it was another member of the American School, Chase from Harvard University, who was now was the head of the American Friends of Greece. Now, I don't know if the organization continued until the 50s, but it stops at some point. And Priscilla Capps becomes the head of the American School Auxiliary Fund in the 50s and the 60s.
Thank you very much. We're still waiting for more. While we're waiting for more potential questions in the chat room, I wonder, Natalia, do you think that the American school has, or Greece has, kind of outgrown the sort of situation in which an institution like the American school could play a significant role today? Is there room?
Offering relief aid, this kind of humanitarian, we did.
In any significant way?
Yes, we did, until I think, during the, from 2015 and several years, when Greece was hit by the crisis, and really Greece suffered for several years, we were, the American school people were, helping, were gathering food, clothes, to help people in need. But it was, again, a special time, a time of crisis. It was really, and at the same time, we had a large amount of immigrants, or, coming from the East. So it was a combination of Greece being in an economic crisis, and at the same time, a growing number of immigrants coming from Turkey and from Syrian refugees. So the school helped try to help, in a sense, to revive this, custom, or this, what we were doing before. Today, in this current situation, as we are now, in other forms, not in humanitarian aid, but I'm sure humanitarian agencies, non-governmental humanitarian agencies can have have a better idea of, the country's needs.
Americans like to, like some other nations, like to stress their exceptionalism. Was Americans' role in humanitarian aid exceptional? How did it stack up with? How did it compare to the other foreign institutions in Athens during these critical periods of crisis? Do you have a sense for that?
For sure, after the help of the American Red Cross immediately after World War I was exceptional. You don't find, the British, the French, as and through their schools, the foreign schools helping, we don't see that much. It was exceptional, I think, for the period of 1918 to 1919, and the American aid, the involvement of the school, and I think it is obvious that it created a social capital for the school. 1922 to 1923, there were, it was such a big crisis that America and other countries, try to help Greece in 1922-23.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from those out there in Zoom?
They started coming now.
Here they come. Okay, that previous one was from Barbara Stetson, by the way. This one is from Chuck Lowry in New York. Chuck says, do you have any thought about how much relief activity was motivated by what we might call purely humanitarian ideals, as opposed to a recognition by those offering aid of Greece's unique position in our cultural history?
Many of these people who came to, many of these people in the American Red Cross and the Near East Relief, they were not active only in Greece, they were also active in the Ottoman Empire. So, yes, maybe Greece, had this special, position in the cultural history, but these social workers and the doctors and the humanitarian agencies were in offering services in the entire Ottoman Empire, which was collapsing, and in the Balkans, which all, were suffering from this collapse. So I hope I answered your question.
Thank you. And we have another one from Elias Chrysochoidis in California, who sends you greetings, and notes that the Hoover Library and Archives houses a deposition of Mary White Tsipouras to ARC in Athens in 1923, describing her activities in 1922. Have you come across her name in your research? Did ARC have any indirect involvement in Greek politics?
I have come across her name, and I have come across her name looking at the records of the League of Nations in Geneva, when I was looking through files that had to do with the the American Friends of Greece or the American Red Cross in Greece. Her name appeared there, but I did not go in depth to look for her, but we can talk about this through email, because that's where I came across her name, not through the Hoover Library.
Okay, thank you very much. That is the last question that's come up on my screen in any case, Natalia. And we have exhausted our hour. So let me turn the floor back over to Alexei again, who will sign off. So Alexei, it's yours again.
Thank you. Thank you, Jack. I want to extend my deepest gratitude to both of you, both Natalia and to you, for guiding us to such an insightful exploration of American humanitarianism in Greece. You know, you spoke so well about this period between the two wars. One day, perhaps we can have some sequel virtual lecture here focused on the relief projects in Greece after the Second World War. And I'm referring to the Marshall Plan and the massive effort to rebuild Europe and Greece. And a point that really proves that every time Greece has been in a difficult position, the United States has come in with its humanitarian stance to support it. By the way, Natalia mentioned that I went with a bunch of people from Athens College to see the exhibition. It's true. And we were all very impressed then by a segment of the exhibition which was not covered today by Natalia, which was the educational institutions that came as a result of the American interest in Greece in those years, and particularly Athens College, for example, which was founded by a bunch of Greeks and Americans, among whom leading role played Edward Capps and Bird Hill. And for Edward Capps, there's a very important building dedicated to Athens College. There was also a part of the exhibition that covered other institutions like the American Farm School which started in 1904, and the American Collegiate Institute for Girls, which was the reincarnation of an institution that functioned in Smyrna from 1875, and then Anatolia College, which started in Merziphon and it again was transplanted in Greece. Anyway, that was a very interesting part of the exhibition as well. I want to thank also my colleague Billy Simopoulos, who is the godfather of these lectures. Without Billy's support and labor of love, these virtual lectures couldn't really take place. And with these words, I want to say goodbye to you from Athens, and we will see you again soon in some other virtual lecture by CYA. Thank you. Good night.